The defense in Paul Manafort's tax and bank fraud trial has rested without calling any witnesses. Manafort telling the judge himself he did not want to take the stand. That now sets the stage for closing arguments tomorrow morning. With me now is Shimon Prokupecz, who's been following the trial. Also, Michael Zeldin, a former federal prosecutor and former special assistant to Robert Mueller at the Justice Department. Shimon, if I could begin with you first. I mean, just to highlight this is the president's former chairman of his campaign, charged with multiple crimes here. Right. And his defense, in effect, cannot mount a defense, or is refusing the opportunity to mount a defense here.
Certainly refusing the opportunity, and the jurors will be told that, and have been told, that there's no obligation for a defense, for the attorneys to put on any kind of a defense, right? I think it's certainly shocking that they didn't put on any witnesses. Like, no one expected Paul Manafort to testify quite clearly. Such overwhelming evidence from the prosecution. They have emails, documents. They have Rick Gates, who is his longtime business partner. So it's not surprising that Paul Manafort didn't testify. But I think people are kind of surprised that at least they didn't put someone on to show that they were making some kind of effort, perhaps. In the sense, while jurors shouldn't consider this as anything negative, there's always a perception thing also with jurors, and sometimes how they could view this. Right. And it seems, obviously, that the defense here is putting everything on their cross-examination, and they're going to make whatever arguments they're going to make in closings tomorrow.
Michael Zeldin, is this the legal equivalent of a white flag?
Well, no, because we think that the defense theory is reasonable doubt, and they think that through Gates, they are able to create reasonable doubt. There was one point in the trial, the question went this way, from defense counsel Downing: after all these lies you've told and the fraud you've committed, you expect this jury to believe you. He's asking Gates. Right. Gates says yes. Then Downing replies, and he continues, rather. He says, I'm here to tell the truth. Manafort had the same path. I'm trying to change. That's the essence of what this trial is. If they believe that after all these lies and frauds, Gates is incredible, one juror, all they need for a hung jury, may say, I have a reasonable doubt. And maybe that's what they're playing to.
But court prosecutions regularly depend on the testimony of witnesses who, shall we say, are not saints, right? If you think of every mob trial, right? Sammy the Bull Gravano. It's not unusual, is it, to have someone with not the most stellar reputation testify against.
But what the prosecutors here, and Michael could speak to this probably better, what they've been so good at doing here is that they have all this other evidence. They really didn't even need Rick Gates. Emails, documents, the folks from the banks, the accountants, the tax preparers. That is overwhelming evidence.
That's right. It corroborates. So you could say, even if you have a question about Gates' morality, his integrity, the truth of his testimony is corroborated by all of the documentation, including, you can't say it exactly in these words, including the words out of Manafort's mouth himself through all of his emails, where he acknowledges the criminal patterns and encouraged them to go forward.
He's spending a lot of money on this defense, and Paul Manafort, as we know, as it came out in this trial, does not have a lot of money to spend. Is there any suspicion here that he is throwing himself, if not on the mercy of the jury, on the president's mercy, that this is an indication that he's expecting or hoping for a presidential pardon?
It's a good theory. I thought, and I said it on air, that this was a guilty plea. It may have been a slow guilty plea through the conduct of a trial, but this was a guilty plea because the evidence was so overwhelming. You can have the same thing happen in a few weeks in the District of Columbia, where he's going to stand trial again for more or less the same charges. I don't understand why you wouldn't work out an agreement to reduce your exposure for sentencing, even if you don't testify, unless you think that maybe if I stand silent and I have something to say, and the president knows I have something to say, he'll remedy that down the line with a pardon.
Shimon Prokupecz, of course, this is part of the overall Mueller investigation. It doesn't relate to Russian interference, but these charges were brought by the special prosecutor. What does this mean for the broader Russia investigation?
I think, for the special counsel, certainly if they get a conviction here, it's going to help them with their credibility, politically speaking. I think Rick Gates, is an important witness for them. That's become evident during the trial.
Witness beyond the financial crimes.
And what's important is that he holds up here, because if for any reason his credibility is torn down, if for some reason there's an acquittal here and let's say it's Rick Gates' fault, what will that then mean for the rest of the investigation? So that politically speaking, this is an overwhelming case for the prosecution. They should win this case. So that will be politically for them. It's important that they get this victory and that the credibility of these witnesses are held up. And the other thing is still, what can Manafort still get some sort of a deal? We know, based on a lot of reporting we've done here, that there has been pressure on Manafort. They were trying to get him to cooperate. He has refused. Could he somehow down the line get a deal?
Well, at any point up until sentencing,
Sure.
right?
Well,
That opportunity is there.
Actually, there's a Rule 35 opportunity for him under the rules of procedure that within a year he has the opportunity to cooperate and then get some sentencing reduction based on that cooperation. So he's got an opportunity to help himself if he wants to.
Michael Zeldin, Shimon Prokupecz, thanks very much.